Hi everybody, Camp Sweet here from the Garage Connection and Central Digger Supply with some fantastic news. The H15 cooler and filter kits, the plug and play ones, are ready to go. We got them in stock, and we're gonna look to be shipping those out come early next week to anybody who wants to place an order. So what is this kit? What do you get with it, and what does it do? Okay, so the main part of this kit is going to be the cooler and filter assembly. This is going to install in your machine, and what it's going to do is it's going to both cool the returning hydraulic fluid as well as filter it before it puts it back into your hydraulic storage reservoir or your hydraulic tank, right? This is going to drastically increase the life of your fluid and the life of the components in your machine. All right, we talked about any time that the fluid gets over about 140 degrees, really bad things start happening. It starts losing its lubricity and anti-wear properties. Okay, so it's vital to keep the fluid cool, especially when you're like me in Florida here, where you got to work under a tent because it's so damn hot. Okay, so your kit is going to come with this. It's going to come with a return hose, and it's going to come with various hardware and associated components that are going to aid you in the installation of your kit. I did a like a torture test with an H12 and an FF12, and I got about 180 degree difference between the fluid temps when the machines were both at full throttle riding their relief valves. Now obviously that is an extreme situation, and I don't think that you're going to use your machine till the hydraulic fluid gets to be 300 degrees, but I did, so you don't have to, and that's what I found. Okay, so this is vital. So this video is going to be the installation instructions for the kit. And you know, if you're thinking about buying a kit and you want to watch the install video and see if this is something that works for you, perfect. That's why I did it this way, and now anybody can reference it at any time they want. So stay tuned for more. The first step in installing the cooler and filter kit is going to be the removal of the drive levers and your foot pedals. Now we've done that already. It's very, very simple. They just unthread from the control valves. Just keep in mind, you want to make sure you don't lose the lock washer that goes between the pedal and the stud. All right, one of ours has gone missing, so I'm going to have to dig through the sand and try to find that. So the next step is going to be removal of this plate here, not this little one, the actual big plate that covers the directional control valves. Doing this is a little bit tricky because there's some things that like to get hung up on the other side. But essentially what you have to do is you got to remove the 4 bolts that hold the sunshade to the bed of the machine. There's a bolt back here, and there's one on that side. All of these have to be removed to go ahead and take this out. So let's do that right now. Now we've loosened these up prior to this. Now keep in mind the sunshade, it's got a tendency to have a little bit of a spring to it because they don't really weld them perfectly from the factory. They kind of just force it in there and thread the bolts in and then go on about their day. So let's go ahead and get these off. There we go. And you can see that it kind of just sits in there like that. All right, so what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to pull this out of the way to get the plate to come up. Now, when you go to take the plate off, you can't see it, but there's a little ear on this side that slips underneath this. So the only way to get this off is you got to pull up on this side, and you really got to pull up on it. And you have to essentially get it to come around that little ear, and then it actually comes off. Now this is that ear that they're talking about. Also, there's an edge right here that likes to get hung up on the side of the directional control valve. So keep that in mind. You may have to pry on it and yank and bend it a little bit to get it out of there. All right, so the next part of this process is going to involve these 2 hoses. Now this hose right here is the supply coming from your hydraulic pump. This one is the return that's going back to your hydraulic tank right now. So unfortunately, we have to get to this bottom one, which means we have to undo this top hose. Now, when you undo this hose, you are going to lose some hydraulic fluid. When you undo this hose, you're definitely going to lose hydraulic fluid. You're going to lose everything in your tank up to and above where this goes into it. So just keep that in mind, and it may be better for you to try to drain your tank before you undertake this. So we're going to take off this hose, we're going to push it to the side, and then we're going to take off this hose. And this is the hose we're actually going to be routing somewhere else. Now when you go to take these off, there's a chance that the fitting is stuck inside of the internal fitting adapter there that goes into the control valve. So if that's the case, what will end up happening is the threads will come all the way off and then the fitting won't budge. You just got to give it a few good strikes with your 27 millimeter hammer, and then it should pop right off. Okay, so there's the pressure hose. So for right now, we're just going to push it down here out of the way. It is going to leak some fluid, so make sure you have a fluid catching apparatus so you don't destroy the planet. And then we're going to take off this return hose. Okay, so the return hose currently, it runs kind of from the right side of the engine and snakes through all these and ends up over here. What we have to do is we have to actually pull it all the way through the engine compartment and go around the back of the engine. So let's do that now. And it does require some finessing to get it to come out. Finessing or forcing. There we go. Okay, so what you want to do with this is you want to take this hose, and for right now you want to just put it on top of the engine and just kind of wedge it between the fuel tank and the air filter housing there. And you want to make sure the end is as high as possible. That way you don't lose a bunch of fluid through there. So we're done with this part for now. The next step is going to be mounting the cooler and the filter assembly. All right, so when you get your cooler and filter assembly, it's going to come just like this. Okay, it's going to come pre-assembled, ready to go, and we have to mount it inside the engine compartment. Now, there's two things we're going to use for that. If you're going to notice when you get here, there's going to be a slot cut out of one of the mounting bolts. Now, that's going to be critical to lining up the cooler so that it goes in the right place in your engine compartment. So on your H15 excavator, there's a threaded hole right here. I'm not sure if there's supposed to be a bolt in there. This unit did not have a bolt in there. So there's a possibility that it is somewhere in a shipping container right now off the coast of Africa or wherever. But either way, we're going to include a bolt for you. So what you're going to do, you're going to thread a bolt into this hole, but you're not going to tighten it all the way up. What you want to do is just leave it enough space so that you can take that notch that's cut out of your cooler and slide it in from the back side, and it's going to locate on the threaded portion of this bolt. You can see here that the threaded portion of the bolt is sticking through. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our cooler and filter assembly, and we're going to slide it into the engine compartment around the choke cable and everything like that. Then we're going to slip it over that bottom L bracket, and then we're going to just slide it back and forth until we feel that notch lock in with the bolt. And we can see that it has done that here. Now to verify that, you go around the front and you make sure that you can see the blue of the cooler sticking through over that bolt. All right, and here we see that it has gone over the bolt, so we know that we are in proper position. So the next thing you need to do is just mark out either one or both of these holes, and go ahead and run a 5/16 drill bit through that hole there. And then you're going to put in the 2 bolts that we include in the kit into each one of those holes. The next step in the process is going to be making up the hydraulic connections on your cooler. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your factory return hose that you wedged on top of the engine, and it's going to go and thread directly into this port on the outlet of your filter. We're going to put that in there, and then we're going to snug this down. Now this lower port, this is where you're going to put the included hydraulic hose that comes with your kit. And what you're going to do is you're going to run it essentially around your motor adapter and your pump adapter, you're going to run it around there, up underneath, and back towards that hydraulic valve assembly that we took the hoses off of earlier. So let's go ahead and we're going to snug these down. We're going to get the hose put on there. Now it is a good idea to hold the other side of your filter assembly when you tighten down, just so you don't twist it on the cooler filter mount. Now this is a considerably bigger size than this. This takes about a 27 millimeter wrench. This other one takes whatever size this adjustable is. And when you snug this down, what you want to do is you want to essentially take your hose and route it pretty much at a 45-degree angle upwards. That's really going to help out when you get to the last part of this installation. Now you don't have to murder it, but it is important that it is at least fairly tight. Now the included hose that comes with your kit has two different ends on it. Okay, we got a JIC end over here, and then we have one of the metric DIN ends over here. The end that goes on the cooler is going to be the JIC end. All right. So what you want to do is you want to kind of curve the hose and sneak it again under. You want to go under the motor adapter, and then if you can, you want to try to get it facing upwards out by the valve body. And then just go ahead and thread this in to the cooler. Now you can choose to tighten it down at this point, or you can choose to wait until you get the hose exactly how you need it. They are straight ends on there, so it really doesn't matter too much about you know, the alignment of the ends or whatnot. So we'll go ahead and just snug it down, because this will be where a very, very big crow's foot would help out. Because it is, admittedly, it is rather difficult to get the wrench in there nicely. Although I guess you could do it before you put the thing in, but that's totally up to you. Okay. All right, so let's go to the other end and get the hose set up how we want it. Okay, so what we want to do, we want to go ahead and thread this hose onto the lower port on your directional control valve body. Now to do that, sometimes I found that it is easier to kind of move some of these smaller lines around a little bit, just so you can get a nice straight shot at the valve body. And it is a little bit tricky to get the thread started, so don't feel like you need to cross thread it. All right, they will go. It just takes a patient hand to get them to thread. What I've found that if it truly does not want to thread and it's fighting you, and you're concerned about cross threading or whatnot, you take out this adapter and get it on the hose beforehand. You can put this in a vise and thread it onto there just loosely, and then you can just thread the adapter into the valve body. And that does seem to help a little bit when it comes to having a very difficult thread to start. Now these connections, don't be afraid to tighten down either. I mean, these are gonna, this one in theory sees no pressure, but I don't want it to see any leakage either. And just keep an eye on the threads up above it. You don't want to mar up those threads if you can help it. Okay, that's it. That's in there nice and tight now. And the next thing you want to do is go ahead and grab your factory supply hose, and you're going to want to thread it back on there. The only thing you have to change really is you are going to have to kind of kick the hose at a little bit of an angle up towards the battery, just to get it to line back up, but it's no big deal. It should go right back on there. Same thing with this. The threads are a little bit tight, but they will start and they will thread. You just have to be patient with them. Now this line, you want to make sure you really get it nice and tight, because this is a pressure line. There we go. So that's going to be it for the hydraulic portion of it. You want to go ahead and snug up any loose nuts or bolts that we have left from the installation at this time. The one thing that we don't do in terms of these kits is we don't provide any of the wiring connections, because everybody chooses to do this a little bit differently. So we don't want to, I don't want to consult one way of getting the cooler to switch on and off, and then you want to do something different, then you got to cut apart all the stuff. So what we do is we provide a pigtail with a positive and a negative, and we allow you to do this how you want. I can show you what I would do, and I think is the best way of doing it. What I chose to do on my H15 is, this is the negative terminal coming from the battery cutoff switch. All right, so this right now is not negative because the battery switch is off. If I were to turn the switch on, this would then see the negative that the battery is, okay? So I use that as my switch, because then you can't leave the battery switch on accidentally because you hear the fan running, and I think that's very convenient. And then all I do is I put a ring terminal on the positive, go right to the battery, I put a ring terminal on the negative, and just back this bolt off and put another one right on. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. It is a little bit tricky to get this pigtail threaded up inside of the cooler. You can choose to put it on before, or you can just have a nice skinny screwdriver and go around from the front and try to thread it up in there. Either way is totally fine. It doesn't matter. So we're going to go ahead and get this wiring pigtail installed. We'll get these connections made up, and then we'll move on to the last part, which is going to be this return hose routing. All right, so now what we want to do is test to make sure that our electrical connections are good. So all we have to do is throw the battery switch. Yep. And you can hear that the fan comes on. We disconnect the switch and the fan shuts off. So electrically, we're good to go. All right, the last part of the install involves the return hose here. So there's a couple things we do to try to keep the hose clear of this exhaust system. The first one is going to be using the clamp. You want to pick one of these holes that run along the top here, not the one that has a bolt going through it that holds the cover on, but one of these 4 holes. And you want to just go ahead and take this clamp and route the hose as far away from the exhaust as you possibly can. I choose to use this hole over here and just simply take the included hardware put it up through, and then put a nut from the top and tighten it down. Okay. And you want to pull as much slack out as you can. You want ideally all the slack on this end. Okay. And then the last thing we need to do to go ahead and help this hose survive a little bit longer is you're going to take the included heat shield that comes with your kit. And what you're going to do is get it around that hose and go ahead and Velcro it to itself. And I just like to take the Velcro seam and sort of put it facing the other way. All right, now this heat shield is going to significantly reduce the surface temperature that the hose is subjected to, and it's going to help it survive being inside of this hopefully considerably cooler engine compartment. We'll go ahead and snug that back down just to make sure that we're going to have a nice solid connection at our tank. Now this one is really a bear to try to get to and get to tighten up. So that's going to conclude the installation of the Central Digger Supply H15 plug-and-play kit on your machine. What you want to do from this point is go ahead and top off or refill the hydraulic fluid and fire the machine up, check for any leaks and things like that before you go and put everything, all the covers back on. This kit is absolutely necessary to the longevity and well-being of your machine, the hydraulic fluid and all the components included in those systems. So I want to thank you for your purchase. I hope that this kit gives you many, many years of trouble-free service for your machine. For now, that's going to do it. I'm Cam Sweet from the Garage Connection and Central Digger Supply, urging you to please stay on those projects.